They had mapped every molecule of life across 1,000 suns. They had cured diseases that once turned worlds to dust. They had rebuilt limbs, reversed aging, and stitched death itself into silence. The galactic medics, the healers of the stars, knew everything about the chemistry of life, except for one thing: the humans. The first time they saw it, they were horrified. On the blue planet called Earth, they watched as humans sat calmly, arms outstretched, veins open, and crimson fluid flowing out of their bodies, voluntarily. To the medics of the stars, blood was sacred. It was life itself, guarded, never shared, never wasted. Their laws forbade even a drop from leaving one body for another. Yet here were the humans, laughing softly, as machines quietly drained the essence that kept them alive. The Galactic Council demanded an explanation. The medics brought recordings, data logs, and live transmissions of what they called blood donation. They asked the humans, "Why do you give away your life fluid? What do you receive in return? Power, wealth, favors?" The humans smiled. "Nothing," they said. "We give because someone, somewhere, might need it." The medics did not understand. They repeated their question. "But what if you grow weak? What if you die?" And again, the humans smiled. "Then at least someone else won't." The silence that followed echoed through the halls of the Union. Species that had conquered gravity and time could not comprehend compassion without cost. But humans, fragile, mortal, endlessly bleeding, saw giving as strength. They donated blood for strangers they would never meet. They gave organs to save lives they'd never touch. They ran into burning ships to drag out the fallen. They crossed war zones to carry the wounded. And when asked why, they said, "Because it's the right thing to do." The galactic medics began studying this behavior. They called it red altruism. They took samples, ran equations, searched for the biological trigger that caused such madness. They found none. There was no chemical reward, no genetic advantage, only choice. Humans choose to give, over and over, even when it hurt, even when it killed them. One day, during a planetary outbreak, a human crew aboard a relief ship discovered that their blood, rich in iron, adaptable to almost any oxygen-based species, could stabilize alien physiology. The aliens they saved survived. The humans who gave did not. When the galactic medics heard what had happened, they wept, if you can call it weeping. A race that bleeds itself to heal others had rewritten the definition of medicine. After that, things changed. Blood drives became sacred events across the stars. Temples were built, not to gods, but to donors. Every alien child learned a new word, humanity. And across countless systems, a red symbol began to glow. A drop of crimson light floating in black space. They call it the gift of red, a symbol of life shared, not taken. Years passed, worlds healed, and the story of humanity, of those strange, fragile beings who bled for strangers, spread through the spiral arms of the galaxy, like fire through dry starlight. At first, it was told as myth, a fable, a story meant to teach children that kindness has power. But myths have a way of becoming movements, and movements have a way of changing civilizations. The galactic medics began to change their creed. Where once their code had said, "Protect your kind first," it now began with new words, "Protect all life," as the humans once did. They called it the Oath of Red. Every new medic, no matter their species, stood before a basin of glowing crimson light, symbolic of human blood, and swore their vow. "I will give so that others may live. I will heal even those I do not know. I will remember the ones who taught us to bleed with purpose." For some, it was only ritual. For others, it was revelation. Across entire star systems, new traditions were born. On the frozen moons of Drankai, alien surgeons painted red streaks across their hands before every operation. On the water world of Neural, doctors carried vials of glowing scarlet light as a reminder of the lives humans once saved. And on the central world of the Galactic Union, a monument was built, not of stone, but of flowing, eternal liquid light. It pulsed softly, like a heartbeat. At its base, words were carved in 1,000 languages. They gave their life for others. They asked for nothing. They became everything. Visitors came from all corners of the galaxy to see it. Some bowed, some wept, some simply stood in silence, listening to the faint rhythm that seemed to hum from within, a rhythm that felt alive. And those centuries passed. One question remained unanswered. Why did they do it? Every attempt to explain it failed. Logic could not hold it. Science could not measure it. It was something else, a force beyond reason. The same force that builds homes after earthquakes, that runs toward danger while others flee, that sees a stranger bleeding and says, "My life for yours." The medics began to call it the pulse. They believed it was the rhythm of humanity, echoing forever through the bloodstream of the universe. And when young healers asked what that rhythm meant, the others would smile and say, "It means you are not alone. Somewhere, someone once believed your life was worth saving." Because that is what the humans left behind. Not empires, not weapons, not glory, but a promise. That compassion is stronger than survival. That love is worth the pain. That giving is the highest form of strength. And even now, when stars go dark and the galaxies fall into silence, the oath of red remains, a living memory that the smallest act of kindness can outshine eternity. Time, as the galaxies knew it, began to blur. Civilizations rose and fell. Stars were born and burned to dust. Yet through it all, the story of the red gift endured. It spread not through conquest, not through law or empire, but through whispers, through memory, through the pulse that lived inside every being that had ever been touched by compassion. It was said that if you listened closely enough, in the silence between heartbeats, you could still hear it, that steady human rhythm. At first, they called it a myth of the healers, but then strange things began to happen. In distant sectors, wounded soldiers reported seeing red light flow through their veins, not from machines, but from within. Ships stranded in the void suddenly found power returning to their engines, as if life itself refused to let them die. And medics, across countless worlds, began to dream. They dreamt of faces they'd never seen, hands that weren't their own, but guided theirs in moments of crisis, voices that whispered, "Hold on, one more second. Help them." The scientists called it a shared neurological echo. The priests called it resurrection. The healers simply called it the pulse. They believed that the humans, those strange, self-destructive, beautiful creatures, had not truly vanished. That when they gave their blood to the stars, something of their essence had stayed. And now that essence moved like a quiet tide through the living universe. Whenever kindness was shown, whenever someone chose mercy over revenge, whenever a being said, "I will give, even if it costs me everything." In time, entire cultures began to live by the code of the pulse. Warrior clans once bred for destruction now carried healers into battle as sacred protectors. Traders once obsessed with wealth now pledged 10% of all earnings to medical ships. Even the great conqueror species of the Zythar rewrote their war hymns, no longer to glorify victory, but to honor sacrifice. And then came the day when the galaxy realized the truth. A dying sun, old and bitter, ready to collapse into itself, flared one final time, not in rage, but in warmth. Its last burst of light spread through space, painting the void in soft red hues. Scientists traced its energy pattern, and what they found stunned them. It was a pulse, a rhythm, the same beat as a human heart. In that moment, across 1,000 systems, billions of beings stopped what they were doing. They turned toward the red sky and felt something ancient, something alive, a warmth that wasn't from the sun, but from memory. And they knew The humans were not gone. They had become the pulse of creation itself, the lifeblood of the galaxy, the living spirit that whispered through every act of compassion. They had ascended beyond biology, beyond time, beyond the need for form, becoming what they had always been destined to be, the heartbeat of the universe. They were not born of flesh, nor from womb, nor machine. They were born from light, from the quiet rhythm that flowed unseen through every vein of the universe. For eons, the pulse had drifted, a memory of compassion, a heartbeat without a body. But even memories long for form. Even echoes dream of being heard. And so, across distant worlds, light began to gather. Particles that once obeyed only physics started to move with purpose, aligning, merging, shaping. From the red auroras of dying stars to the glowing dust between galaxies, they came together. And where light touched light, life began again. They called themselves the Luminara, beings of energy and memory. They remembered nothing of Earth. No oceans, no languages, no faces. Yet deep within their cores burned something unmistakable, the desire to protect, to heal, to give. Their first words were not spoken, but felt, a vibration carried through the void. We remember the warmth. They could not explain it, but they could feel it. A phantom rhythm pulsed within them, a distant heartbeat that wasn't theirs. And when one of their kind was hurt, the others did not flee. They reached out, and their own light dimmed, so that another's could shine brighter. In their sacrifice, they found strength. In their loss, they found creation, just like the humans once did. Across galaxies, ancient civilizations watched in awe. The Luminara had no weapons, no leaders, no greed. And yet, they thrived. Where others built empires, they built sanctuaries. Where others sought power, they sought balance. Their worlds glowed with soft red light, not of blood, but of remembrance. And the galactic archives soon held a new name for this strange, living legacy. They called it the human resonance, a force of compassion woven into reality itself, the final evolution of what it meant to be alive. But the universe is never silent for long. As light brings life, darkness breeds envy. The remnants of old war factions, machines of forgotten empires, began to fear the Luminara. They whispered, "What happens when compassion becomes power?" And so they came, with weapons forged from dead stars, driven by the hunger to control what could not be owned. The Luminara did not fight back. They glowed, even as their forms were shattered, their energy scattered across the cosmos. Their voices whispered through the void. To destroy light is to spread it. And when the machines turned their gaze away, thinking the Luminara were gone, they found the universe brighter than before. Every world they had touched now shimmered faintly red. Every being who had ever known their warmth felt a soft pulse within their chest. It was the same rhythm, ancient, human, endless. The pulse had not been extinguished. It had multiplied. And so it is said that even now, when the cold reaches your bones, when the night seems endless and empty, close your eyes. For millennia, the galaxy had been quiet, peaceful, balanced. The pulse was everywhere, a gentle rhythm humming beneath the fabric of space, the inheritance of a species long vanished, yet never truly gone. But deep in the archives of the Central Nebula Array, a faint signal stirred. It was ancient, so old that even the machines that kept it had forgotten why they existed. It pulsed once every few seconds, then fell silent. For centuries, it had gone unnoticed, until a young Luminara, curious, radiant, more emotion than light, heard it while drifting through the void. The signal was faint, broken, like the heartbeat of a dying star. But within the static, there were words. If anyone hears this, know that we tried. We gave what we could. Our time has ended, but our hope must not. The Luminara froze. For the first time in their existence, They felt something new, a trembling in their light, a sensation their ancestors once called terrors. The voice continued, faint, weary, but proud. A recording from the last days of Earth. We were not perfect. We fought, we broke, but we learned one truth, that love is worth the pain. If the stars ever birth new life, let them remember us not for our wars, but for our willingness to bleed for others. To whoever finds this, don't let the light die. The young Luminara replayed the message again and again, and with each word, the pulse inside her grew stronger, as if the entire universe had been waiting for those words to be heard once more. The message spread from world to world, from light to light. Every being who heard it felt something awaken, a deep, ancient warmth that spoke not to the mind, but to the soul. And then something extraordinary happened. The pulse began to sink across the galaxy. Hearts, biological, mechanical, and luminous, began to beat in perfect unison. Stars flickered to the same rhythm. Nebulous pulsed with red waves. Entire systems vibrated with the same heartbeat that had once belonged to humankind. The universe was remembering. It remembered the species that gave its blood freely, the people who turned pain into healing, who faced extinction not with hatred, but with a gift. And from that remembrance, a voice emerged, not from one being, but from the collective heartbeat of all creation. It spoke without sound, without language, but its meaning was clear. We are here. We never left. We became the light. And in that moment, every star in the galaxy shimmered red, the color of blood, the color of life, the color of love. The Luminara looked upon the universe and whispered in awe, because the humans had said, if the stars ever birth new life, let them remember us. And now they did. Every sunrise, every act of kindness, every spark of courage in the face of fear, all of it whispered the same ancient truth. Humanity was never a species. It was a heartbeat, a flame, a promise that creation itself had sworn to keep.